The night was supposed to end with a simple ride home. Instead, by sunrise, a single father would be standing in his tiny kitchen, staring at his wealthy boss wearing his only clean shirt, wondering how one unexpected act of kindness had turned both of their lives upside down. She remembered almost nothing from the night before, but he remembered everything. The tears she tried to hide, the trembling hands, and the heartbreaking words she whispered when she thought nobody was listening. What neither of them knew was that this embarrassing morning would become the beginning of a second chance neither had dared to believe was possible. Before we continue, if you believe people deserve second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Bright Acts for more emotional stories about kindness, courage, and second chances. Daniel Carter had learned not to expect much from life. At 36, he was raising his 8-year-old daughter Emma alone in a modest apartment on the edge of Seattle. His wife had left 3 years earlier, taking another job in another city, and eventually disappearing from their lives almost completely. Daniel never spoke bitterly about her because Emma still asked questions about her mother, and he refused to fill his daughter's heart with anger. Instead, he worked 2 jobs when he could, paid bills carefully, packed Emma's lunches every morning, and fixed old appliances for neighbors to earn extra money. His life was exhausting, but there was love in it, and that was enough for him. Daniel's main job was at a successful technology company owned by Victoria Hayes, a brilliant and intimidating CEO known for making impossible decisions before breakfast. Victoria was 34, respected by investors, feared by employees, and almost impossible to read. She expected perfection from everyone, including herself. To Daniel, she had always seemed like someone who lived behind glass, beautiful, powerful, untouchable, and completely alone. Their relationship was strictly professional. Daniel repaired equipment, handled maintenance emergencies, and occasionally stayed late when the company needed him. Victoria barely knew anything about his personal life. Everything changed on a cold Friday evening when Daniel was finishing a late shift. Most employees had already gone home, but Victoria was still in her office. Earlier that week, the company had suffered a devastating financial setback, and rumors were spreading that a major investment deal might collapse. Daniel was about to leave when he noticed Victoria walking unsteadily through the lobby. Her expensive coat hung loosely from one shoulder, her eyes were red, and the sharp confidence she normally carried was gone. She had clearly been drinking far too much. The security guard was preparing to call a taxi, but Daniel stepped forward. He knew what could happen if Victoria tried to drive herself home. He also knew what could happen if someone took advantage of her condition. Without thinking about his job or what people might say, he offered to take her home. Victoria tried to refuse, but she could barely stand straight. Daniel called a cab, helped her into the back seat, and sat beside her so she would not fall against the window. During the ride, Victoria remained strangely quiet. Then, somewhere between downtown and her neighborhood, she began crying. Not the elegant tears of someone trying to appear vulnerable, but the exhausted tears of a person who had been holding everything inside for too long. Daniel did not interrogate her. He simply offered her a clean handkerchief and told the driver to continue. After several minutes, Victoria whispered that everyone around her wanted something. Investors wanted money, employees wanted answers, relatives wanted favors, and people who smiled at her often disappeared the moment she stopped being useful. Daniel listened without judging her. When they reached her luxury apartment building, Victoria suddenly refused to go inside. She looked terrified of being alone. Daniel realized she was in no condition to be left by herself, so he contacted the building concierge and made sure she was safely inside. But when Victoria stumbled near the elevator, Daniel decided it would be safer to stay until she was settled. He helped her into the guest room and placed a glass of water beside the bed. She fell asleep almost immediately. Daniel thought the difficult part was over. Then he noticed she had spilled something on her blouse, and it was soaked. He did not want to leave her sleeping in wet clothes, but he also knew he could not touch her unnecessarily. He called the concierge and asked whether a woman from the building could help. Nobody was available. After several minutes of hesitation, Daniel found a clean, oversized shirt from his emergency work bag and left it beside her bed. He explained what he had done before stepping away. Eventually, Victoria changed into the shirt herself and fell asleep. Daniel stayed in a chair outside the bedroom until morning. At 6:30, his phone vibrated repeatedly. Emma's school had called because she had woken up early and was waiting for him to come home. Daniel immediately left, asking the concierge to keep an eye on Victoria. He rushed back to his apartment, made breakfast for Emma, packed her school bag, and took her to school. He was exhausted but relieved that everything had ended safely. What Daniel did not know was that Victoria woke up around 8, looked down at the oversized shirt she was wearing, and froze. Her memories returned in fragments. The alcohol, the tears, Daniel sitting quietly beside her, his refusal to take advantage of her vulnerability, his decision to stay nearby, without crossing a single boundary. And then she remembered something else. She had cried in front of him. Victoria felt humiliated. She arrived at the company later that morning expecting Daniel to avoid her. Instead, she found him repairing a broken conference room projector. He looked tired, but he greeted her normally. He did not mention the previous night. He did not tease her. He did not ask questions. He simply told her the equipment would be working again in 10 minutes. That simple act affected her more than he could have imagined. For years, Victoria had believed kindness always came with a price. Daniel had shown her otherwise. Over the next few weeks, she began noticing details about him she had never bothered to see. She discovered he was a single father. She learned that Emma loved astronomy and wanted to become an astronaut. She learned that Daniel sometimes skipped lunch so he could afford Emma's school supplies. She also learned that the man everyone considered an ordinary maintenance employee had a remarkable talent for solving problems nobody else could fix. But Daniel kept his distance. He knew Victoria was his boss, and he refused to let gratitude become something complicated. He had already experienced enough instability in his life. Emma needed consistency, not another emotional disaster. Then came the day everything changed. The company's financial crisis became public, and Victoria was blamed for the collapse of the investment deal. The board demanded that she resign. Employees began whispering that she had lost control. Daniel watched Victoria walk through the office that evening carrying a box of personal belongings. For the first time, the woman who had seemed invincible looked completely defeated. Daniel could have ignored her. Instead, he followed her outside. He did not offer money or advice. He simply reminded her that losing a position did not mean losing her worth. Victoria stared at him for a long time, and something inside her finally broke open. She admitted that she had spent her entire life proving she could survive without anyone, only to discover that surviving was not the same as living. Daniel understood that feeling. Over the following months, Victoria rebuilt her life. She started a smaller company based on an idea she had once abandoned because investors considered it too risky. Daniel helped with the technical side during his free time, not because she was his boss, but because he believed in her. Emma became unexpectedly attached to Victoria, especially after Victoria helped her build a tiny model rocket for a school project. Slowly, carefully, something beautiful grew between them. There were no grand promises, no sudden fairy tale transformation. There were quiet breakfasts, school pickups, difficult conversations, shared laughter, and moments when Victoria simply sat beside Daniel after a long day. She learned that love was not about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who stayed when life became difficult. One evening, nearly a year after that unforgettable night, Victoria returned to Daniel's apartment carrying a small box. Inside was the oversized shirt he had given her that night. She had washed it, folded it, and kept it all this time. She told him that the shirt had become a reminder of the night she discovered someone could see her at her weakest and still choose to protect her dignity. Daniel smiled because he understood what she was really saying. The shirt had never been the important part. It was the kindness behind it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Bright Acts. Sometimes one small act of kindness can become the turning point in a person's entire life. And before the story ends, I want you to leave one special comment. Kindness can change a life. Write those words if you believe that even the smallest good deed can reach someone at their darkest moment. Daniel never expected anything from Victoria that night. He only wanted to make sure a vulnerable woman reached home safely. Victoria never expected to find love in the one person who asked nothing from her. But sometimes life does not send us the person we think we need. Sometimes it sends us someone who reminds us who we really are. And that morning, when Victoria stood in Daniel's kitchen wearing his shirt, Neither of them realized that they were not looking at an embarrassing mistake from the night before. They were looking at the first page of a completely different future.